You can tell the difference between a well-framed piece and a poorly framed one without knowing anything about framing. If you walk past it, something will pull your attention. The artwork will feel like, this is off. The frame feels like it doesn't belong there. You know, the whole thing just feels off. You might not be able to explain what you are seeing, but you feel it. And the reason you feel it is almost always the same. It is in the process. The steps taken before the piece ever reach the wall, the ones you never see, the ones that most people assume just happen on their own. This video is about those steps and why they matter more than the frame itself. Today I want to take you inside the framing process at DPF and show you something that I think changes how you look at finished works, because what you see on a wall is always built on what you do not see, and understanding the gap between the raw materials and the finished piece is what separates someone who frames something and someone who preserves it. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why process is not a behind the scenes details. It is where the value lives. A few weeks ago, a client brought us 2 pieces to frame. Same size, similar artwork, and she wanted to hang them side by side on a wall in her office. One had been framed elsewhere a while back. The other she was bringing to us fresh. When both were done and placed next to each other, the difference was very clear. The one framed elsewhere had a slight gap at one corner. The mount was cut unevenly. You could see it if you looked. And the glass had a faint mark sealed inside it. That was never coming out. The one we had done sat perfectly, clean lines, the mount balanced, and all the sides, the glass was clear, everything. Same room, same wall, same artwork size. But one looked considered and, you know, attention paid to the work, and the other just looked like, okay, it's cool. She noticed it before I said a word, and that difference, every bit of it, came down to the process. So let's walk you through the process. Point 1, what you see is always built on what you don't see. Before anything looks finished, it goes through a stage that is the opposite of finished. Uncut molding, unassembled corners, a blank sheet of mount board, a piece of glass that has not been cleaned yet. Nothing about that stage looks like what ends up on your wall. And this is something that extends well beyond framing. When you see a brand that looks polished, a business that looks established, or a person who looks, well, you know, they carry themselves with confidence, well, you are seeing the results of a process that was not visible. The hours of practice, the mistakes corrected early, the standards applied consistently before anyone was watching. The finished product is just the surface. The process is what gives it durability. Systems. In framing, every step of the process has a reason. Nothing is decorative, and when any one of those steps is rushed or skipped entirely, the finished piece carries the evidence, sometimes immediately, sometimes over time, as the damage starts to show. Step 2. Each step is small. Together, they define the results. Cutting the molding, preparing the mount, cleaning the glass, assembling the frame. On their own, each of these steps sounds straightforward, and they are when done properly. But the gap between average work and serious work opens up widely. Cutting the mold at an angle that is even 1 degree off will leave a visible gap at the corner joint. Not a big one, but one you will feel every time you look at the work. A mount that is not measured and cut to exact proportions will look slightly wrong, even if the viewer cannot name why. The artwork inside will feel crowded on one side and too far on the other. Glass that has a single fingerprint or dust particle sealed into the work is there permanently. Once that frame is closed, it is closed. None of these are catastrophic on their own, but they compound. And what you end up with is pieces that look like it was done rather than a piece that looks like it was done well. The difference in efforts between those two outcomes is not massive, but the difference in the result is obvious. Point 3, you don't just see good work, you feel it. What do I mean by this? When a frame is done properly, you do not just notice it with your eyes. Something in you registers it. You see the corners very tight, very clean. The mount creates just enough space between the artwork and the frame. The glass is clear and clean, not in a way you consciously check it, but in a way that simply does not interrupt your view. When you see it, it's pleasing to the eye. That's all. The whole piece has a quiet solidity to it. And when something has been done carelessly, even if you cannot name the specific flaw, you feel that. You feel like a mild unease, something slightly is off. You look away sooner than you should. That response is not normal. It is trained into your eyes and your mind. Well-made things versus things that are not well-made are just natural for humans to, identify. Good work that requires real attention takes time. And in a world where everything is pushed towards faster and cheaper, the work that moves slowly and deliberately stands out. Not because it is trying to, it just speaks for itself. People do not always notice the details. They will feel them. And that feeling is built in the process, long before the piece reaches your wall. Point 4. Process is what separates something that lasts. There is a practical side to all of this that does not get talked about enough. A frame done properly does not just look better, it lasts longer. Acid-free mount board means the artwork does not yellow or degrade from contact with materials that were never designed to be next to an artwork in the long term. UV protective glass means the color in the photographs or painting do not fade from light exposure over years. A cover tape on the back means that dust and moisture do not work their way into the frame over time. None of this is visible when you look at the finished piece. This is the point. The things that preserve a piece of work are almost entirely invisible. They live in the choices made during the process. And those choices either protect what's inside or quietly damage it over the years while the frame continues to look fine. This is why process is not just about aesthetics. It is about what condition that artwork is in. This is why process is not just about aesthetics. It is about what condition that artwork is in 10 years, 20 years from now. Who inherits it? What state is it in when they inherit it? A frame is not decoration. When done right, it is preservation or protection or legacy. What you see is always built on what you do not see. That is true in framing, and it is true in everything else worth building. Your brand is built on the work you did before anyone was paying attention, right? Your reputation is built on the decisions you made when no one was watching. The relationships that matter are built on the small, consistent things, not the grand gestures. Process is unglamorous. Process is difficult. Process takes time. It is repetitive. It does not, photograph well, but it is where the real value is created. When something is done carelessly and it fails, the failure is visible. When something is done properly and it holds for years, for decades, the process that made it hold is long forgotten, but the results show. That is what we are building at DPF. Not just frames, a standard of work that holds. A process that is taken seriously enough that what comes out of the whole process can be trusted. And whether it is framing or anything else you are building in your life, the question is not what does the finished result look like. The question is, how seriously did you take the process that produced it? Picture handing something over, a piece of artwork, photograph, a jersey, and knowing with certainty that what comes back is going to be done properly. Please subscribe. Every week we go inside the work, the process, and the thinking behind what we build at DPF. And tell me in the comments, what is one thing you have been meaning to frame that is still somewhere just waiting? I read every comment, so let me know. Maybe you'll be a lucky person and I might ask you to send your work so I frame it for you. Who knows? So leave your comments and let me read them. Thank you very much. Catch you next week. Peace.